Today, we're proud to shine a spotlight and welcome back to TGI, a company that's doing more than just advancing technology. They're transforming lives. Globe Telecom is one of the leading full-service telecommunications companies in the Philippines. For decades, Globe has been at the forefront of digital innovation, financial inclusion, and nationwide connectivity, playing a critical role in uplifting communities, empowering businesses, and building a more connected Philippines. Globe Telecom is not just connecting millions of Filipinos to the digital world. They're actively building the infrastructure, the protections, and the innovations that make real inclusion possible, even in the most remote parts of the Philippines. Now, it's always a pleasure and is becoming something of an annual fixture to host our great friends from Globe on TGI. The conversations are always inspiring. So welcome to Season 10 of The Great Indoors, coming to you from our stunning studio at MWC Barcelona. In this season, we continue to explore cutting-edge innovations shaping the world of connectivity, technology, and customer experience, all through the unique lens of human impact and meaningful change. I'm your host, Matthew Roberts, and as ever, I'm joined by Larissa Yee, the TGI famous podcast producer. For our first conversation today with Globe, I'm joined by my boss and co-host for this episode, our Chief Marketing Officer, Gil Rosen. And together we'll be talking with Anton Reynaldo Bonifacio. He's the Executive Vice President, Chief Information Security Officer, and Chief AI Officer at Globe. And Anton has spent a decade shaping Globe's cybersecurity and technology strategy, and today he's leading the charge to embed AI into the heart of the organization's transformation efforts. It's a great conversation. Then I'd like to welcome back a great friend, a great conversationalist, Mr. Darius Jose Delgado. He's Globe's Chief Commercial Officer, and Darius leads Globe's entire commercial portfolio across mobile, broadband, and B2B. He's been instrumental in driving Globe's aggressive push towards full digital adoption on connectivity nationwide. So let's get started. This is great. This is always a highlight. I hope you enjoy. So I'd like to welcome you back to The Great Indoors, MWC 2025. Really excited to welcome our next guest to the show today. His name is Anton Reynaldo Bonifacio, and he's the CISO and CAIO of Globe. That's quite a title. We're going to get into that.
Is that a world first?
I think it is. Kind of both the Chief Information Security Officer paired as a Chief AI Officer, I do think is a world first.
But even the Chief AI Officer, I haven't seen that around. Usually it's
I know it's a region first in a lot of ways, right? Because there's a lot of Chief Data Officers or Chief whatever other officers, but a real Chief AI Officer. And there's a funny story to that. So,
okay, we'll get into it. And also helping me host this episode is our CMO and my best friend, Gil Rosen. So welcome back, Gil.
Well, good to be here again, another year.
Yeah, it's
awesome.
Great.
Awesome
it's
setup.
Great. So let's get into it. Let's go back to the role, the duality of your role, the uniqueness of your role. Tell us a little bit about it, Anton, and how it came about.
Yeah, so I've been Globe's Chief Information Security Officer for the past, I think I'm 11 years in Globe now. So even the CISO role has always been unique, at least within the telco setting, just because I've always taken after both IT and network all at the same time. So, I think it's one of the first converged CISO roles. I've been holding it since 2014. But at the same time, it's also kind of not just a second line role, but also a first line role. So all security infrastructure operations is also with me. The Security Operations Center, governance, and again, looking after both IT and network. I think infamously, we're still one of the few telcos in the world, for example, that has installed IT EDRs into network workloads like Huawei or Nokia, so on and so forth. But again, so the funny thing with the AI role is, and here's the story, Gil, is so it was actually new. So it's last year on a CEO earnest coup. I think he was in Shenzhen, for kind of being exposed to different AI use cases. Calls me up. I was in San Francisco at the time for another conference. He said, "Hey, Anton, there's a lot of cool AI stuff here in China. You know what? Why don't you take on AI? Just do what you did for cybersecurity, but do it for AI. And you know what? Talk to our HR head. Announce yourself next week." I'm like, wow, okay. So, and
I like the pace.
And so going to the title, I'm like, well, if I'm going to announce myself, I'll give myself a nice fancy title. I'll come up with a draft, call myself Chief AI Officer, and the next week we do this public disclosures, and I am, I think, one of the first in the region, and I think, Gil, you're saying, like even popular globally a bit. I mean, so it's been fun. It's been a wild ride just because of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I feel like I'm Two-Face, where, look, I'm both the security guy, but the AI innovations guy, and I think that's what Ernest had in mind is, look, you know what? Let it be your problem.
And it is like I said, I wouldn't say Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, or that may come into it. But what security threats are you facing typically in the Philippines, Anton?
A lot of it, frankly, so I guess on two different fronts. So at least within the telco, a lot of it is still classical espionage in a lot of ways. I mean, that's really, I think, what threat actors are after as far as telcos are concerned, call data records, location information, with things happening in the world geopolitically, as you all can imagine, right? And like in the Philippines being at the hotbed, South China Sea, West Philippine Sea, US versus China. So whenever there's chatter, whenever there's things happening in the news, you can see, look, there's a lot of buzz and espionage is a big thing. Opposite of that, though, especially with our fintech company, I mean, Gcash, one of the largest, fintechs globally, it's a $5 billion valuation, 5x unicorn by now. It's really fraud in the scam economy that's, really targeting and hurting people, especially in a third world country where the goal is financial inclusion. And imagine scams are happening, which is why, we've done a lot of cool things, I think, within the telco and the fintech company to be able to really do customer first protection. So for example, I think yesterday during one of the GSMA's APAC CEO roundtables, we're still probably the only telco in the world where as long as an SMS has a link in it, we don't deliver it, period.
Oh, wow.
Like it's not even just URL filtering or domain blocking. If an SMS has a link, it does not get delivered.
But doesn't that actually, as part of the security, for instance, when I get like a two-factor authentication, there's never a link in it?
So there shouldn't. Well, at least for us, if there's a link, then we're not going to deliver it. So make sure there's no link.
Wow.
I want to ask you back on the AI part. How does your role actually play into the different organizations within Globe, like the business side or the network side? Because it's such a huge scope to deal with. So are you the one that's prioritizing use cases, or are you driving things top down?
All of the above. So the way that, going back, right? So that was May. So here I am, just announced myself because I was empowered to do that. But then, day one really was, okay, what the hell do I do now, right? So one of the things that I knew more what I didn't want to do rather than what I wanted to do. So the first thing was like, look, I didn't want to build a siloed organization. What I wanted to make sure was like, look, AI, the buzz then was generative AI, but there's been a lot of ML, classical AI style that's already happening within the organization and the company.
Yeah.
So the goal was, to answer your question, Gil, is look, first, it's like a semi-matrix organization where, look, all of the existing folks that I knew was going to be able to help deliver a lot of these AI use cases, I just sort of kind of created those dotted lines, but gave them dedicated resources. So like, for example, the head of AI product engineering is actually the head of our product innovation in a different team. Head of AI infrastructure engineering and data engineering, also within existing IT and data groups. Our head of AI analytics also is the head of our customer data analytics. The head of AI governance is my head of AI cybersecurity governance, for example.
Right.
But then my sort of kind of like as a responsibility to them was that, hey, you know what, with the group's new cost center, I will give you dedicated resources that could be able to help, I guess, progress a lot of the AI specific goals and responsibilities that you have. But I really just wanted everybody to be able to work under that same umbrella and move things forward.
Yeah.
So going back to your question, it's all of the above. So number one, I would say at our current phase of quote unquote AI maturity in Globe, 80% of the work is product engineering. We want to be able to create these, use cases, we produce these things, but we've cut it into two separate buckets. One is all of the external use cases for sure need to be robust, a little bit more classic. We're engineering that. We're working with partners, working with the large CSPs to be able to ensure that they're going to be robust enough for, prime time use of, 60 million, 80 million customers, which, is kind of like the reach and base of our different products and services. But the internal use cases, I think, is where we're trying to say, hey, you know what? Since we can't focus on everything, internal productivity, how do we approach it? So that's the bottoms-up approach that we have, full democratization. We created platforms where people can build their own co-pilots, build their own bots, basically a basic kind of build your own RAG kind of thing. And I think right now we have 400 plus co-pilots and bots that employees have built over the past 12 months. Well, actually, technically, not even that long, 8 months. But now, because at the end of the day, it's their problem to solve, right?
Is there like any big change, and this one is a disruptive one, is there any, not pushback, but maybe it's not as fast, and you don't even have to talk about Globe specifically, but do you think that this issue, for instance, that if you have potentially, you can reduce 2,000 people from the call center, but then does the call center organization have the motivation to decrease itself by 2,000 people? And what does that mean about the people running it? And how have you experienced let's say, the human part of it versus the technology disruption?
I mean, so that's a great question. At least for us specifically, of course, we have not really crossed that Rubicon yet, right? I mean, a lot of it is just, look, again, that's why...
Copilot.
Yeah, exactly. From an internal productivity perspective, it's more, look, how can knowledge workers do knowledge work better? And which is why for our employees, we want it to be bottoms up so that they're not afraid to try AI. Is, look, I'm not going to top down and try to replace you or replace the work that you will do. To me, it's a tool. It's Microsoft Excel fast forward 20 years. It's, look, I'm not going to pay the consulting companies to buy spreadsheets. I'm going to teach you how to use Excel so that you can build your own spreadsheets that will help you. And whether or not, and that's where I think our internal democratization goals is less about value realization, but a little bit more impact realization is how I would like to dub it. Just because even if one co-pilot or bot that they build is going to benefit one employee or 100 employees, it doesn't matter. For now, our goal is just for people to be able to get comfortable with these tools, to be able to augment the work that they have. But going back, I guess, to the philosophical question of what's going to happen after, I guess just to me personally, I do kind of share Satya Nadella's principle on it. Although, of course, there's a lot of arguments about it. Is at the end of the day, look, I mean, there will be new knowledge work if something gets replaced, right? Like that, I don't think it's really going to go away in that regard.
Do you have in your mind like a vision of when your customers will be dealing mostly with agentic agents versus real human beings? Like a timeline, a theoretical timeline?
I mean, the way that we think about it, at the very least, of course, it's really more outcome driven, right? Look, for us, we want to be able to serve them better at the end of the day, whether that's online or offline. And, if, for example, these tools that we build will be able to, enhance that customer lifecycle or journey, that's the goal. As to the how, we're looking at it, I guess, on both ends, right? I think if ever the answer really to the question is we're not looking at it as AI only. It's almost kind of, maybe you could call it backward, but it is, we're kind of like linking it with Omni in a lot of ways, right? Look, there still will be an offline experience. At least that's what we're realizing with Filipino culture. So how do we now just create a unified experience online and offline with AI, agentic or not, enhancing that experience?
No, and just switching topics a little, and this may be more a Philippines governmental issue. But going to your role as the Chief Security Officer, does generative AI create new security threats? And what I'm thinking about here is traditional cyber criminals want to break in and steal things, but generative AI can enable like a flood of misinformation into the country, basically. Are you cognizant of that and how generative AI can present new security threats?
100%. I mean, we've been seeing it already in a lot of ways, just whether that's, phishing, for example, is much more difficult to...
More personalized.
Exactly, right? You can't even differentiate anymore. Back then, it was you say back then, but like, 12 months ago, you're like, hey, you know what? You could spot it because, English is broken, punctuation is incorrect. But then all of a sudden now, they're all Ernest Hemingway as far as phishing is concerned. So like, how do you even discern, right?
Yeah, that's what's really. And how has generative AI manifested itself in the Philippines amongst the adoption or the curiosity or even the fear?
I mean, I don't have a strong sense, to be perfectly honest, but at least, if I'm going to look at it just within Globe, or at least within the, Globe portfolio companies, for example, I mean, I think, look, the Philippines, we've always been known to be, a very, very digital nation and group. I mean, very, very young population. Back then we were the texting capital of the Philippines. I think we were number one Facebook users. So I do think that is starting to increase too as far as adoption. I mean, I think that's a great thing about the population, and which is what we're trying to take advantage of, both from a customer and employee perspective, is that, you know what, we know that we have a highly digital group of people from a user and, like I said, employee perspective. So really it's being, how do we empower them and really ensure that they can get access to these tools? Because we know for a fact that if they get addicted to it or they see the value, they will use it.
Yeah.
The answer is probably 5 years away, so I'm not suggesting anything. But in theory, is the chief AI officer a role that will be valid 5 years from now? Or do you think it'll just be part of being a chief information officer or a digital officer? Because it's not going to be is it like for now to build the nation, or,
I mean, I have two views on that, just because, look, again, you kind of like backtrack 15 years ago in some way. That was kind of like also the idea with a chief information security officer role. Right? Like, look, they were saying maybe that, maybe now it's important. Okay, is it a check and balance? Is it going to be subsumed within the CIO role? But we've seen that, it actually arguments to be outside of the CIO role has been stronger. I do believe that the chief AI officer role, I do think, at least even the way that I'm thinking about my own role and designing it, I'm actually not looking at it as a permanent thing, which is why, like I said, look, I didn't want to build a silo. I'm just trying to enable everybody. If I get abducted by aliens tomorrow, it should still be in place.
Everything is on the table.
Yeah, exactly. Because it is really an acceleration of the philosophy to make sure it's there. But I do agree with you, Gil. Like, I think ideally, if you ask me, it should not really be an independent thing. It should really be kind of like, just integrated into the different roles. Kind of like the CTO should be like or that's chief innovation officer or technology officer. Yeah. Should really double as the AI officer at the end of the day.
I remember going back 12 years when big data was at the top of the hype cycle. Everybody was rushing around to have a chief data officer, right? And they did. But I think, as Gil mentioned at the beginning, you're definitely the first person who has this chief AI title. Are you seeing any of your competitors or any other people in the industry potentially replicate that model?
Not yet. And I mean, I don't necessarily want to disparage the industry in that regard, but I think it's just more of, for us in Globe, the distinction is the chief data officer, or at least the enterprise data services head, it's kind of like the plumbing in a lot of ways, right? And, one of the descriptions that I use as far as, how we're approaching our AI strategy is I call it the AI kitchen. My job is to build the AI kitchen so that we can serve the use cases or the dishes.
That's good.
Yeah. So, and what we don't want to happen is that, we're going to be use case driven so that, if I want to serve, let's say, Chinese noodles, like I have a separate kitchen for it. If I want to serve pizza, I have a separate kitchen for it. And next thing you know, you have 15 different kitchens because every part of the business is trying to serve something. So we want to make sure that, hey, do we have a kitchen, an infrastructure that you can customize whatever menu you want to be able to serve it? So in a lot of ways, the AI officer role, we're here to cook. We're the chefs. The data office, for example, is part of your plumbing. That's the electricity that's going to power the microwaves, the water,
the fuel.
Exactly. Yeah, right? Yeah. And I think creating that distinction, in a lot of ways, I think that's why maybe the challenge in adoption or driving AI in a lot of companies is that, look, you can't have the plumber cook the food.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so when the data officer is so focused on the supply chain, there's really not enough to be able to come up with the dishes or the menu or whatever. Right. So I do think that the separation needs to happen. And now whether or not, that's why I do agree with you, Gil. I think it's really more of, look, is the CIO supposed to be the chief AI officer? So I think it's really more of, look, there's going to be a BAU kitchen. And there's a lot of things. And I do think that there is an argument to say, hey, we need a separate restaurant just for all of the AI dishes.
Yeah.
And whether that merges eventually, we'll see. But maybe you just have two restaurants at the end of the day.
I think it's a really good analogy. I like it. If you look at the next 3 years, because looking beyond is almost impossible, where do you think, specifically for Globe and maybe for the industry, what would be the things that we look back at 3 years from now and say, wow, we did X. Wow, look at what we're able to do now. What are the domains that you think will have the greatest impact in the next 3 years?
For us, in a lot of ways, it's really, almost tactical. But, as long as we can fill in the gaps as far as our customer journey pain points are concerned, right? To us right now is, look, the Philippines is still one of the last countries to come out of the pandemic. So there's still a lot of economic challenges. Us kind of like, look, frankly, Globe sort of overshot the whole, hey, you know what, pandemic, let's go digital. We were great, Gcash happened, so on and so forth. But now we're realizing with things going back to normal and offline is coming back again, we're not prepared for that, right? So that's why to us, it's really more of, hey, how can this new technology, again, be able to serve it not digital only, but omni across, really focusing on customer pain points? I think, simplifying it is, look, to me, goals of AI. So Satya Nadella would say, hey, 10% GDP growth. For us, a little bit more simple. Look, if we can see NPS increase to where we want it to be, that I think is already a great indication, 3 years after, if we were really able to maximize the potential of this new technology.
Mm-hmm. And I think this next question I'd like to ask both of you, because you talked about it before, Anton. It's still so relatively new. And we've all been subsumed by the excitement and the power of generative AI. Is this the biggest thing, the biggest leap you've witnessed in your career with Globe?
I'm not sure if it's so much. Well, I guess just because, look, maybe the last one was like the .com bubble or the internet or the transistor. So I certainly wasn't working then yet. But I mean, I guess within my current, yes, blockchain or all of the other stuff, AI, I do think that there's something here. I do think that this is not just hype. Yeah. But I do also believe that kind of the same way the internet did, look, there should be a bubble at some point. Look, when 2000 happened, there was a bubble. And if you think about it, right, like post-bubble, it's 2025. In a lot of different nations, it's only now that we're really seeing the power of digitalization and the internet, right? You're talking about 25 years after the bubble. Yeah. So I think the timetable will be shorter for AI, but I do think the bubble needs to pop. And then maybe it's not going to be a 25-year wait. Maybe it's just going to be a 5-year wait. But I do think that it should, right? It really should transform the way that we do things, especially because, to your point, classical AI has been there. But the generative piece is really a UX. It's an interface. It changes the way that we interact with the world and with each other. Yeah. That I think is why it's going to be transformative.
But the best quote I've had is, it allows us to have a conversation with the totality of human recorded knowledge. I love that quote. But Gil, what are I know we talk about it all the time at work and we get excited, but being here in Barcelona again.
For the 20th year.
Yeah. literally the first time we were really talking about it was 12 months ago.
I actually remember Barcelona pre-iPhone days, where Nokia was the hero of not the network Nokia, the device manufacturer Nokia.
Yeah, I was there. I was there on that.
So I think we're climbing up a ladder of modernization. So obviously, connectivity, internet is the foundation. It's the floor we stand on, and then the mobile devices and the iPhone really changed everything. And the phone became much more than just a connectivity device. It became everything you do via your and it's also the accessibility of information. This is the next one, but what's really interesting about it is that nobody can actually talk about the trajectory of where this is going, because the level of intelligence you talking about with the totality of humanity information. We really don't know what's going to happen past. So we are now in the agentic era. We're most likely going to, I think, what's going to be called the innovator era, where these agentic capabilities turn into something that they can actually independently innovate things that will take us to another new level. And then with AGI, artificial general intelligence, we're actually facing something that is exponentially more intelligent than us, that we don't know we're not sure yet how to control it. And I think because we're having conversations about technology and actually talking about things that seem as if we're talking about another country or another person, how are we going to control it? Is it going to like us? It is not. These are things that we never actually discussed in the context of technology. So first of all, it's super interesting. I tend to be more on the positive side. I think the likelihood of the outcome being awesome is, 80%, 60%. Right. I think it's because I think, by the way, if the technology is smart, it will realize it needs us to keep it running, right? It cannot dig up iron core from Congo and then ship it, and then it can optimize stuff. It can help us. I think if it's intelligence, I think at the end of the day, the optimal level of intelligence aspires for peace and harmony. And hopefully, that will actually be the outcome. So I think this is profound on a different level also because it actually starts to involve a lot of philosophical questions and, what does a telecom look like in 10 years? How many people run it? Is it like, it's not Ernest anymore, it's you. So, right, you sitting down and actually everything is dark and you can do everything, or how many people are needed, and what's the customer experience, and how many telecoms will there be? And there's so many different questions. I think it's really profound. But I think, Anton said, we're looking at it and we want to see, how do we improve MPS? And then and I think we'll soon arrive at a place that we can actually start to plan strategically and more profoundly, because everything will need to be rebuilt. Because we cannot have a legacy in the background that's slowing us down. So super interesting times, but a lot to be figured out, yeah.
Man, I mean, we haven't even talked about quantum computing yet.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
Like Majorana 1, Microsoft is mind-blowing just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Earlier on, you talked about Ernest calling you from China, right? So what did you make of DeepSeek?
Fantastic,
Yeah.
to be honest. I mean, I think just what they're doing in open sourcing so many things. I mean, look, the big headline was when they announced it. But I mean, over the past more like every week, they're dropping all of these new stuff that's just open source. Just recently, 3FS, their new file system, where I think it's great, kind of like driving that, innovation. To me, I think the impact is, at least to me, philosophical in the sense that, how much you can do when there is constraint, right? Because, a lot of the things that they did was because of the constraints that they were given, right? That I think it kind of like gives a lot of companies or founders or whatever kind of like a second look where, if you're well fed, the amount of innovation that you could do is actually limited, that it's actually sort of vice versa, right? So I do the effect on the thinking, on the industry, on the engineering, more than anything else.
It's almost a disruption of the disruption.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I liked about it. It took all the Silicon Valley companies by surprise because they're supposed to be the innovators, the disruptors, and their constraints created the innovation. So, yeah.
So we're coming towards the end, Anton. I've really enjoyed the conversation with you, but let's do a bit of future gaze. And we're back here in 12 months' time, and I'm going to invite you back to the podcast in 12 months' time. What do you expect to happen significantly over the next 12 months?
I hope I still have the job, number one, that, we could prove the value. We have a well-meaning team. We're trying to partner with a lot of, different people. Like I said, to us, it's just being able to solve the problems of our customers for now. At least that's the short term. So if that's something that we could accomplish, number one, low-hanging fruit. Number two, again, is, we can continue to educate and empower our employees and customers at the same time to be able to help themselves. And I think the third piece is, if we can start to partake in a lot of these R&D, a lot of this engineering, we do want to be more of an engineering first organization within Globe. I think just those three things, 12 months, I'll be extremely happy.
That's really cool. And Gil, I'm going to ask you for your prediction.
Well, we are on the other side, meaning that we have a lot of things that we believe can really help our customers. And I think for the next 12 months, and it's not just for us, it's for the entire industry, is let's see this actually implemented, scaled, provide the benefit, and everything that we blah about, let's see it actually working. And it's not easy, right? It's not like dropping a piece of technology that I can be some startup and then it just happens. There are so many things that you have to consider from security perspective, but also integration into existing systems. So for me, the next 12 months will be about actually, it's put your money where your mouth is, and then walking the walk. And we need to walk the walk.
Yeah.
Same thoughts, right? Exactly. I just want to be able to actually produce something and show that, this is it. It can be done. Like, it's not hype. It's not a bubble. There's really something here.
Okay, brilliant. Now, the way we finish these podcasts, Anton, and we've done this with Ernest in the past and many other Globe people, is we do our quick fire round, QGI to go. And it also serves as a bit of free market research for me as well, and for me and Gil. So I'm going to do it with both of you, but I'm going to give you multiple choice and you give me your preference.
Okay.
So you ready? TGI to go. TGI to go. ChatGPT, Gemini Advanced, or DeepSeek?
DeepSeek?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I don't know, top of mind.
Yeah, that's good.
For me right now, it's ChatGPT, but it's
Okay.
on a personal level.
Here's now, I've done several podcasts already today, and it's 50-50 between DeepSeek and ChatGPT. And you just... So you're going out tonight. Would you rather do karaoke or disco dancing?
Disco dancing.
Yeah. I'm a terrible, terrible singer.
Well, here's the thing. Are you invited to the Amdocs party tomorrow night? I'm sure you are.
I am, but it's really more of trying to juggle a lot of parties. But since I'm here now, I almost kind of have to say yes.
So there'll be some disco dancing.
I know where I am.
Yeah. TikTok or Instagram Reels?
Instagram reel.
Yeah.
Yeah, same for me.
Yeah.
Same.
I'm not on TikTok.
You're not on TikTok. Yeah.
Yeah, some things are generational, and I have to recognize that.
My kids
I'm
are
not
not
in the
IG,
right-
so that's why I'm on IG. It's just a stalker account to see what my kids are.
Basketball or soccer?
Basketball. I'm Filipino, so
Okay. And which team do you follow?
the old school Charlotte Hornets with Alonzo Mourning, Larry Johnson, and Muggsy Bogues.
Ah, wow. Yeah, for me, it's basketball, but it's 50-50. 50-50.
And you're going to have a drink later on, I'm sure, maybe. Would you choose Carver or Sangria?
Water.
Or water?
I've been alcohol free for the past almost 12 months. I'm 15 days away from 1 year. Not even a drop. Cold turkey stop.
Wow. You know, I did the same for 2 months. And then I came here.
I did the same for 2 days. I love wine. I can't.
Yeah? So you're gonna have
I
some-
did too. So.
Yeah. Well, look, Anton, Gil, thank you for joining this
Thank you.
episode today. It's been wonderful. It's been great to meet you. It's been great to have this conversation. We look forward to seeing you again. We always love having Globe on the show. We always have great conversations. And I just hope you enjoy the rest of your week.
Always a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
So welcome back to the Great Indoors 2025.
Great to be here, Matthew.
Oh, it's great to have you here.
Thank you.
And our guest today, who's a veteran of the, what a veteran is the right word, or a frequent flyer of,
With no rewards.
yeah, of the podcast from Globe, Mr. Darius Jose Delgado, who's their Chief Commercial Officer now.
Yeah.
Welcome back, Darius.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here. It's an
Yeah.
honor. It's an
Yeah.
honor.
Honestly, I have to say this. The guests we have are always great, but the guests from Globe
Really?
are always fantastic.
Really?
Oh,
Let's put that on record then.
it's on record. It's on record. You guys, honestly, all the way back to Ernest and yourself
Oh.
and Anton
Ernest is the gold standard.
Yeah.
You don't even come close.
So look, let's get into it, Darius. How's your week been?
Oh, it's tiring, but a lot of productive meetings, a lot of new discoveries, a lot to take in and bring back to the Philippines.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I've been also prioritizing the key ones that can make a big impact in the Philippines, in Globe
Yeah.
especially,
Okay.
in
And we'll
terms of how we serve our customers
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, and we'll get into that. And tell us about your role now and what's happened in the 12 months since we last saw you.
Okay, so I've been installed as the official Chief Commercial Officer of Globe Telecom since September.
Okay, congratulations.
So under me will be 3 businesses: consumer broadband, consumer mobile, and also B2B. And also the other enabling units like enterprise data and strategy, and of course product management, marketing,
Right.
the like. So it's
Wow.
really a full commercial portfolio.
And it sounds exciting.
It does.
And
It comes with a lot of challenges though.
and so it should.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so it should.
Yeah.
And since we spoke a year ago, what's Globe been doing in the last 12 months that's helping to empower
Yeah.
the people of the Philippines?
Yeah. So we're big on digital adoption. In fact, we ended the year growing 5% on the mobile side, 5% on the B2B side. And
Wow.
there's great traction, especially on Globe Fiber Prepaid on the broadband side.
Congratulations. And we talked about that 12 months ago. This was going to be your...
Next big thing.
Yeah.
So traction has been great and it's continuing so far until Feb.
Yeah.
So it's great traction, especially in the prepaid side, because anyway, we're basically a prepaid market, right?
Yeah.
When you look at the digital habituation of the active loaders in the mobile base, 100% of our active loaders are already on mobile data
Okay.
with varying degrees of habituation.
Yeah.
Every single customer that's active in our network on the mobile side, they know how to do mobile data services. So that's great in terms of digital habituation.
Yeah.
And on the broadband side, market-wide, we've reached like 30% industry penetration of fiber.
Wow.
We've been contributing significantly to that kind of utilization market-wide, and it's on account of really great traction we're seeing for Globe Fiber prepaid.
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant. And how have you dealt with that increased demand for high-speed connectivity, the network expansion, the implications of security, etc.? What challenges have come your way as you've gone through this?
Of course, in terms of the network, that's the lifeblood of mobile and even broadband. So the basics and the hygienes need to be there. And we just received an award from Ookla earlier, where for 3 years in a row, we've been awarded as the most consistent mobile network in the country.
Wow.
From 2022 to 2024. Yeah, so we're so proud of it. We see that translating into business results, and based on our market research and even VOC, customers are happy with the network service. So that's a big foundational block that we cannot let go. Big foundational priority that we keep on sustaining. We should keep on sustaining. And then, of course, there's another piece on digital habituation where we give a lot of services to the customers so they are more in control of their lives, because if they are in control, their lives get uplifted. And so we've been seeing great traction in the GCash side, which is a sister company, where 65% for top-ups or so have been on GCash already. We've been growing email on the side of Globe One, which is a Globe-owned channel, where it becomes the biggest and I think the most favorite telco app in the Philippines with more than 15 million email per active users. So
this is all incredible.
Yeah.
All great metrics. And the Philippine government has also launched a national broadband plan. Tell me a little bit about that and how it impacts what you're doing.
So we're participating in that. Actually, the 3 MNOs have been participating in that, so that in geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas, the 3 MNOs actually provide network coverage. So it's a great partnership with the government. It's something that we're so excited about, and it's really consistent with the nation-building aspiration that the Globe brands are known for.
That's awesome. Now, let's talk about, switch gears a little bit and talk about eSIM. How are you getting on with eSIM offerings in your market?
I'm so proud to say that we have the most differentiating eSIM service with Amdocs today.
Okay.
Most markets that we've seen who had earlier adopted eSIM is based on QR. You get the QR in email. In the Globe One, co-developed with Amdocs as a solution, our eSIM is QR-less. So all you need is to activate and download it from the app, and in just a few minutes you get your eSIM.
Wow. And how's that enhancing other offerings like IoT adoption or things like this?
Not so much IoT adoption for now, but we've seen great traction in terms of switchers coming over to the Globe base using eSIM.
Okay. Right.
With minimal go-to-market efforts on eSIM, it has a natural traction.
Awesome.
We're seeing great results on eSIM.
Awesome.
And I think it's also because we have delivered a differentiating experience on eSIM more than any operator in the Philippines.
That's awesome. Now, we can't do one of these episodes these days without talking about AI or generative AI.
It's all the rage now.
Oh, yes. In fact, we've gone, nearly 8 minutes into this conversation without mentioning AI, which is close to a record. But how's that playing out in the Philippines? How it's playing out amongst the consumers, and how also is obviously playing into what you're doing, your objectives? Because obviously Anton is the chief AI officer as well as
we
the
work
chief
well with him.
So
based on the stats that we've seen, we've observed that the most predisposed to AI in terms of discovering what it does and in terms of traction, it's really among the youth. They experiment, right? They ask questions, they use it for research, they use it for their studies, or just for fun and entertainment. So the early adopters are really the youth.
Okay.
And so what we're seeing also is that AI plays a role in terms of our future growth in three pillars. The first one is operational effectiveness, not just on the network side, but also in the enabling and support functions. On the network side, it just is involved in network operations, but also in demand sensing, demand planning, in the builds.
Yeah.
And
Things
so
like predictive maintenance. all
exactly,
that
and
kind of
predictive
thing.
maintenance and
Yeah.
operations, all those stuff that makes the network of Globe differentiating. We're not saying we are top notch there, but it's something that we're really looking at and really making sure that adoption really happens faster or sooner than later.
Yeah.
That's the first one, internal operations. Number two, it elevates the customer experience because any initiative that we prioritize in Globe has to redound to an improvement in customer experience. Actually, not just an improvement in customer experience, the customer experience should become our differentiator given the initiatives that we do. And AI is actually pivotal to make that happen. And specifically, we are employing AI now in terms of hyper-personalizing our touches to the customers across the digital channels, which are foremost GCash and also Globe One.
Yeah.
Such that what we've seen is that 60% of CLM offers are delivered through AI already in Globe.
Wow.
What we've seen in terms of engagement and retention and even win back and overall engagement of the subs touched by AI, it has tripled from the usual methods before.
Wow.
So we're not even about generative AI. It's predominantly just machine learning for now. But can you just imagine the results that could be much, much larger or bigger when we do generative AI?
This is one misconception that people think that AI was born on the 28th of November 2022, right? But it wasn't. AI has existed for quite some time, way longer than just ChatGPT.
Yeah, just like the digital channels, right? It's there, but it was just expedited when the pandemic happened.
Exactly.
The behavior has been there. The channels have been there.
This is just the propulsion, if you will, of that.
It was just expedited.
And what are you using it for personally?
Personally,
And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you.
research. Research.
Yeah.
I have this app called Chat on AI,
Yeah.
and I use it for fun. I enter a text saying, for example, can you show me or create for me an image of two artists combined? For example, Taylor Swift and Whitney Houston, badly put. And then it's gonna show up. And what that means also is more and more from just text. It's predominantly text now, right? It will evolve into more videos, more images. That's gonna require more bandwidth from the network side.
Yes.
And therefore, if we are pushing AI to the hilt moving forward, we have to also prepare an AI-ready network, which is founded on 5G.
An AI-ready network.
Yes. Because the way we look at things at Globe, it's really end-to-end. The entire supply chain, the entire value chain needs to align.
Yeah.
So it's not just the front-end capabilities that we develop. Even the supply side and the infrastructure side should be modernized and should be evolved so that the front-end capabilities are very well supported.
No, and you're right. Everything's been text-based, been chatbot-based.
It's going to evolve.
The video tools are tough to use, like Soros and DALL-E's okay on ChatGPT. But 12 months from now, those things will be way more.
That will be the norm.
Yeah.
I've been to the Huawei booth.
Right.
And I saw an AI application there which converted a book into a movie.
Right.
That's amazing.
Wow.
That's
and
amazing.
Somebody was telling me before that from an educational perspective, they learn physics through basketball. So it created a model of education to teach somebody physics, but using metaphors and analogies from because they were a basketball fanatic.
Right.
And it helped them become proficient in physics
Yeah.
because it adapted their learning model
Yeah.
to that,
Right.
that thing.
And my conviction also is, while we continue the adoption of AI so that it really gets entrenched in the day-to-day across the organization, at a certain point, all of the players or all of the operators in the country will adopt it as well.
Yeah.
So technology is technology. It's not differentiating, right? It's how you use it that makes you different.
Yeah.
So it's all about setting up the foundational AI initiatives
yeah.
or building blocks
Yes.
to actually future-proof us so that we just don't ride the bandwagon for the heck of it.
Yeah.
So it's more, how do we institutionalize a universal platform for all of our data?
Yeah.
How do we do data processing and inciting so they all translate into a differentiating proposition and offer for the customer?
Yeah. Absolutely.
That will make us different
Yeah.
and relevant and
Yeah.
compelling.
Yeah.
And still number one
Yeah.
on the
No.
mobile side.
Well, and I think we jumped into it there. I mean, we started to look into the future of AI. And if we meet again this time next year on this show, what's your prediction on where we'll be? I love the AI ready network. And obviously video tools and imaging tools and music creation tools will become more prevalent.
Yep.
But what else on top of that? Because I'll tell you what I've noticed from 12 months ago. If we go back 12 months and I ask people, like I asked you, Darius,
Yep.
what are you using it for? A year ago, people were like, they didn't want to admit they were using it. They felt guilty. They felt dirty. But now there's more of an acceptance.
Yeah.
In it is okay to use
It's prevalent now.
it. Yeah, exactly. And it's okay to don't
You don't want to be left behind.
Exactly. That's the notion.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to lose your job to AI.
Yeah.
You're going to lose your job to someone who uses AI better than you.
Exactly. I'm so aligned with you.
It is. It's true.
It doesn't eradicate or replace people,
Yeah.
but it could replace people who don't know AI.
Exactly. Okay.
So
So
in the next 12 months, I predict Globe will own hyper-personalization more than any operator in the Philippines.
okay.
AI will get more commoditized.
Okay.
5G,
And when you mean more commoditized, you mean it'll be
everyone's
cheaper?
gonna use it.
Okay.
It's gonna be cheaper,
Yeah. Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Everyone's gonna use it. It won't be so much a differentiator across operators, right? Because everyone uses it anyway.
Yeah.
But the reason why I say in 12 months we will own personalization, because the way we will use it, the way we will leverage on our own inciting and internal data and external data combined will be different in terms of how we serve our customers. Because at the end of the day, the real differentiator for operators like us is really experience. It's how we touch the customers, when we touch them, when recognizing the moments that matter and capturing them in those moments and serving up the most relevant offer without them asking for it. So it's really more creating that need.
Yeah. And if we've looked at that and we're evangelizing how great it's going to be, do you see any potential ethical or security issues with it?
Of course.
Yeah?
That's part of the foundational things that we have to really operationalize in Globe. We have to uphold the ethical considerations, and educate also the market how best it is used and how they shouldn't use it for XYZ, because it's also our responsibility to make sure that AI is used responsibly.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well said. Now, we're almost at the end of the week. I don't know, when do you fly home?
Sunday night, we're extending, my wife and I.
Oh, well, that's nice.
Yeah, good for her, bad for my wallet, but good for her.
Well, you'll have a nice time to decompress. Well, what is it you've seen? We talked about generative AI, but what other things from the show this year have really stood out for you? There's a couple of things that have really stood out for me, but I'm interested to get your thoughts on that.
Apart from AI, it's really the power of 5G.
Right.
I've said it time and again before that there's no use case that differentiates 5G versus 4G. But given the right build, the right densification of sites, the right customization of offers, 5G could be the next big product. So we don't view 5G as a network service.
Right.
We view it as a product.
Right.
And you will see next year.
I always remember Ernest. You just jogged my memory on something Ernest said to us one time. He said, as far as I'm concerned, the only good use case for 5G is speed test. Right.
And there's also
That was 2
FWA.
years ago.
There's also FWA.
FWA
It's a really cost-effective way of serving the underserved areas. The underserved markets where fiber won't be ever economical.
Exactly.
So it's also a great pointer for fiber, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you've seen how successful FWA has been in the United States.
Yeah.
Right. It's been incredible the disruption that it's caused in the broadband area.
And we have a great partner on FWA.
Yeah.
So we will make it big in the market.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're almost at the end of our time. And it's a pleasure seeing you again. Pleasure speaking to you again, Darius.
Likewise.
It's always great.
Yeah.
And if you remember from last year, we finished with our TGI quickfire round. TGI to go. Are you ready?
Okay.
Okay, here we go. TGI to go. Do you use ChatGPT, Gemini Advanced, or even DeepSeek?
All three.
You're using all three?
Yes, all three.
But that's good because there's that coexistence. Some of them are the language models are better than the others at certain things.
And you can see how differently each one answers your question.
Yes.
Especially DeepSeek.
Right. I've not played around with DeepSeek.
You should try.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Now, this is a surprising random question that's been in there this week. It's got some interesting answers. Do you like ballet dancing or flamenco dancing?
Oh, God. Neither.
Yeah.
Sorry, Barcelona.
I've had two guests today that were like professional flamenco dancers.
Oh, really?
Like, really?
I'm sorry.
We should have got you all together. You could have dancing here. Now, are you a work from home guy or an office collaborator?
Office collaborator. I love meeting people. I love working with people in the flesh. I don't want video. Doesn't feel real for me.
No. And it can become too, what's the word? Too comfortable. All right. Yeah. So if you're going to eat tonight, would you have paella, as I'm sure you've already had, or would you go for something a little different like lasagna?
Oh, paella. Anytime.
Yeah. With a glass of wine or a glass of sangria?
Wine.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. Well, were you at our party last night? Did you go to the Amdocs party last night? I didn't go. Yeah.
Sorry. Can I suggest for next year?
Yeah.
Can you confirm with me your dates? Because there's always a conflict. There's always a conflict. And I feel bad.
Yeah.
I've never attended a single one.
Yeah. Neither have I.
That's why I cannot miss the podcast. I keep on telling Natty, this is my only contribution during MWC for Amdocs, so I cannot miss it.
No, absolutely. We love having you on. Now, if we could go out tonight, would you do karaoke or disco?
Disco. Oh my God. I'm so 70s.
Me too. 70s and 80s, baby.
Oh, 80s is the best decade of music.
Yeah. There's an 80s disco in Barcelona. But,
really?
Yeah, there is, but I'm just too busy and tired to ever get myself out there.
Same.
Yeah. So we've come to the end now. Thank you, Dad. It's been brilliant as ever. Are there any last thoughts you'd like to leave our listeners with before we sign out today?
Always keep an open mind because you definitely don't know everything. So the best way to know everything is to keep an open mind, keep learning, keep listening,
keep having conversations.
Keep having conversations, learning best practices, meeting a lot of people.
Yeah.
Expand your circle. Right? Of influence.
Yeah.
There.
Awesome.
So that's a good way to learn.
Excellent.
Expand your circle of partners.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
Wise words to finish another great episode. So thank you very much, Darius.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Thank you.
So I want to say, what a great episode. Thank you, Anton. Thank you, Darius. Really, really great. And I'm not just saying it. Our conversations really are a highlight of my week in Barcelona. So thank you for joining us again this year. And I look forward to seeing you next year. Like I said, it's an annual fixture. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please rate or review if you could. It certainly helps us. You can subscribe to TGI on all the renowned podcast channels and even probably the less renowned ones. And for all our back episodes, video teasers, and all that amazing, rich content that we have, it's all available for you at amdocs.com/the great indoors. Okay, we've only got a few more episodes left in this record-breaking Season 10 MWC season. So we'll see you next week. These episodes just get better, by the way. I'm Matthew Roberts for Amdocs in Toronto, and have a great day wherever you are.